That was easy because I have done that earlier. But the second part which I was doing was using OAuth with from within Business Central,
Okay,
and that is giving me some trouble.
that's
I've
good.
got
Yeah, because
few questions for you.
makes sense because I did explore some things during this week. It's super interesting where I was able to reach with my limited knowledge as well as limited time during the week. But I'm super interested that we are doing this because I know it'll be super useful for every one of us going forward when you have these kind of requirements coming up.
So Saurav, I think from April, this OAuth is mandatory, right? For SaaS version.
Uh, that's a very tricky question, and let me tell you why. Because I did try it on PC20 preview, the web service key, and not just because I liked it, but I was getting mixed messages from the community that it's. I know that it's supposed to be disabled this
Right.
release, but based on the preview, the web service key is still working. So I'm not yet sure. I'm hoping it goes away. And once and
Okay.
for all, all these, whatever we need to learn, we'll learn it. But what I was able to understand is the web service key was still working on the preview.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start. We have a few more people here. So this is a what 75th PC Open discussion. As I said earlier, we'll be taking off next week because in India it's a little confusing when it is, but I'll be off on Saturday because I'll not be in my place. But I'm pretty sure we'll have good amount of discussion today, which will have everyone who is interested to kind of keep doing on different areas that we are talking about. So if you are not in these meetings ever and you're listening to this on YouTube, you don't need to send me an email to say, can you add me for the next meeting? You can just go to this link and register yourself for the upcoming meeting. If you're here and don't want to kind of register every week, then just drop your name and email in chat and you'll be added as a default attendee going forward. So people who were not here last week or was not able to kind of focus last week, this is what we were discussing, that we'll be building something called as attachment management. Uh, and let's understand the problem. The main reason that I think, or the main problems that I think why these options are required going forward is one, uh, when you use record links in your Dynamics Nav or Business Central versions till Business Central 14, because it was a Windows client, it was able to understand links stored on your shared drives, on your local computers, on your servers, and in some cases on FTPs also. It was able to understand and hyperlink to those locations because those were your local drives. And the Windows client was able to do it because it was installed on the client machine. So the Windows client used to understand the operating system, the file structure of the user who is using it. What happened with the evolution of Business Central, especially starting Business Central 15 and higher, that the Windows client was dropped, and the only option that was available was the modern or the web client. And it's not a Business Central change, the way I look at it. Any application that you use on a web browser cannot read or understand your file structure. So you can try to download a file from your email. It always goes to a default location that is defined on your browser, normally the download folders, or any other website for that matter. So any browser based application cannot understand the system file structure, and there is a very simple reasoning behind it is The application can be run across multiple type of devices. You can run your website on your phone, on your tablet, or on your laptops and PCs. So it's impossible for a web-based application to understand your local file structure or your shared drives. So when you kind of typically upgrade your data from Business Central 14 to higher version, all your record links are useless. User cannot hyperlink to that. User cannot click on it and download the file and things like that. That's one major reason that I understood. The second one is, and this might be specific to SaaS, but I'm very sure that it applies to on-prem customers also. When you try to store attachments or documents using storing them into media or blobs, it drastically increases the size of your database. We, as I work in the upgrade team, we in upgrade team have seen databases where if you just drop the file structure that's sitting inside the database, it sometimes reduces the database size to terabytes because they use so often. The business require multiple documents on, let's say, on a posted sales invoice for reference purposes, maybe some drawings and things like that. So storing documents inside Business Central was never a good idea. And in Business Central SaaS, it's a, it's an expensive idea, to be very fair, because Microsoft will start charging you if your database grows after a certain point. So then what we were discussing, and Manish, you are not here, but we all discussed about it, and Sandeep sir and we all were discussing about it, that what are the available options that we have? And these are the very most used and commonly used option that we hear of. So we discussed about that, can we do it on SharePoint? I know there are possibilities, but I haven't tried it. Can we do it on OneDrive? Then Sandeep sir said, can we do it on Azure Blob? And then I got a mail about can we also do it from Azure Web Services. So these are kind of commonly used options. So to begin with, the idea is to make sure that we have a simple, maybe an action somewhere, which can just derive a pattern of code that can upload a file to any of these programs or any of these services. And then there's another button that can download the file from any of these applications. Now, once that framework is ready, it's more or less ready for people to use as they go forward. As in, you can have 200 scenarios of how you want to use it. But, and Sandeep said, correct me if I'm wrong, but our idea in this meeting is to make sure that we build the bare minimum framework of how you can do it, and then it's your mind how you want to, exploit it, that framework into it.
Agreed. Cannot agree more.
Right.
Well, the thing is, we should have some base structure ready and let the people explore it the way they want, and the business requirement is.
Yeah, because every business have their own business requirement, and we can write about it. We can think about all the possibilities, but we'll surely hit a roadblock sometime. Everything is different. So if there's a basic framework like Microsoft have for certain things, let's say Microsoft have frameworks about exporting data to Excel. Now, how you are using it may be completely different than how I am using it or somebody else. But there's a basic framework, and then people can be, creative about how they want to use it. So this is what we are trying to do. And the people who are new and were not here earlier, there's this public GitHub branch called BC Open Discussion Samples, where we'll be kind of uploading all the source code if you are interested to do devs on it. And yeah, Manish, go ahead.
So Saurav, you told that keeping the file on blob field, storing it on blob field will obviously increase the size of the database. I'm talking about the SaaS one. So what's the other possible way? Because customer wants the uploaded file to be sent to on a mail. So what's the other perspective I can use apart from a blog? Because that's the
See,
easy way I can see to send it as an attachment.
that makes
On
sense, but yeah, so now think about it that if you upload those documents when customer is adding them,
Mhm.
let's say on a SharePoint or on a OneDrive or any of these services, more or less, then during sending of email, you just have to download them into streams and then attach them into your email.
Okay, instead of saving on the blob, I should download it from this and then send it to as a
Yeah, as an
stream
attachment.
attachment.
So
Okay.
even if it is in blob, you will have to extract it into the stream and then
Right,
attach it, right? So
right,
in the
right.
same way, rather than extracting it from the blob, extract it from the services which you are using. Like your customer is already paying if he's on SaaS for SharePoint, OneDrive. These are minimum that he's paying. And I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that Azure Blob is a cheaper option to store documents. So maybe
Okay.
he's using that. So I'm pretty sure one of these services every customer is licensed to, and we should utilize what they have rather than kind of dumping it on Business Central database more or less.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing that we did on this was the extend customer approval. I was able to kind of complete what we discussed, Sandeep said last week about the changes and all. I've added the README over here. As Sandeep said, you said, I've also attached this image of what changes you have to done on the workflow so that anybody who is referring to this can just download it, read it through, and go ahead with it.
Great.
Now the next one, we have created this attachment management. It's an empty one right now. It's just a requirement section right now. Manish, if you have time and if you are interested, you can just come to this branch called PC Open Discussion Samples, and you can fork it, do your changes. Once you're done, then you can do a pull request, like Sandeep said I've done today, and then we can talk about it in these meetings and all.
Sure, sure.
So Sandeep
Just a,
sir,
just a small note.
yeah,
This is not exactly what the requirements is.
okay,
This is just for extending the attachment functionalities to areas where it is
it
not
is not
available
a.
by default.
Oh, okay.
Rest I've not been able to complete, so I didn't publish it.
Okay, that's not a problem. So, do everybody want to look at it? Because I was a little bit distracted. I spent some time on SharePoint and I spent some time on Azure Blob because I thought they were cool enough. As in, I'm pretty sure if I can figure out SharePoint, the OneDrive will work on the similar lines. So, if you're interested, I can share what I was doing and where I hit a roadblock and I didn't move ahead from there.
Please.
Okay.
And then I will share mine.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So let's first talk about Azure Block because that's the one where I've spent most of the time. I have written some code also, but I'm kind of getting stuck at some situations. So what happens is if you have a Microsoft Azure subscription like this, you can create a storage account and I will recreate it because maybe that's my problem. I don't know much about it, so I just created one storage account, and then inside that I also added a container, which is your block container called htTest. Now the idea was that I'll write some code, and that file will kind of move automatically to this area, and then I'll figure out how I want to link it in my Business Central based on file name or whatever that way will be. But that's the kind of extension of what I was trying to do. So where I'm stuck, let me see. Where is maybe logs? No. Okay. Because I'm for sure doing something very wrong in creation. Because when I see what's happening with this, it's kind of failing drastically when I'm sending a request. And that's what I guess my problem is. And I might have to create a new one, and that's okay if I have to. It does send the request from Business Central, it seems, but then it doesn't do it. So and now maybe let me go back into Business Central and explain what I was doing there, and then maybe we'll create a new Azure blob if required. So
Just a
while I
small
was
question.
go
Did you
ahead, sir.
refer some document?
Yes, I was actually referring something, and then I stumbled upon something cool. So I said, okay, this might be old, so I should kind of talk about this because this seems interesting. And now this is my first resort anytime I do something, I guess. Okay, so I've been talking about this for a very long time that we should keep an eye on what's available on the system application because all the cool things or most of the cool things in Business Central are kind of being extracted and separated out into the system application. So as Sandeep sir was saying, I read a lot of articles. I read people who have created their own APIs and things around it. And then for some crazy reason, I was searching for something else yeah, last week onto it, and then I ended up finding a whole directory of Azure Blob Service API. So Microsoft actually have a whole set of library if you're working on Azure Blob Services. So I thought, okay, that's cool. I spent some time reading into this, which made sense. This provides you functionality to work with the storage accounts, containers, and blob in your Azure Blob services. You can, using this module, create, delete, and list containers. And a container is a collection of all the files in your storage account. You can build tools for uploading and downloading blobs to and from Azure Blob Storage. So that means they have already handled it. We just need to understand how to maybe use this. Manipulate data stored in Azure Blob Storage services. Now this document is so big, I'm not going to kind of read everything, but there's a create my first blob if you have to. There's a kind of a pattern that you need to follow. This is the whole set. We'll test it out because I have it in one of the extension. All the parameters are defined, which is your container. There are some temp tables into it, or temporary tables, I should call them. ABS container, which is a temporary table. But when you use this module, it will kind of fetch all the container info from your blob storage and put it in this table just for the runtime so that if you have to play around with things. In the same way, inside each container, what is the content? What kind of files you have, what are the names and things like that will be stored into temporarily for the runtime into ABS container content. So this gives you everything that you need, more or less, reading from it. I guess my biggest problem right now is maybe I'm not able to use it more or less. Then there is this initialize, all the parameters are provided here. I was playing with, I guess, initialize and then put. So there is a put, there is a push, there is a pull. All those commands are available in Microsoft Base or system application. You don't have to write crazy code. Maybe that was required a year ago. Before 19, I guess that's where it was announced, if I'm not wrong. Seems so. But now this have everything that you need. It also supports Seams OAuth if you want to use that kind of credential. It also has a dependency with base64 convert, which means that while you will be sending your files, it'll convert it to base64 and then share it with your blob services so that it can be uploaded back there. So that was after spending, I guess, 10-15 hours on by running through different articles, reading about it, and then finally by mistake ended up on this system app where I was able to see what I can use. Okay. So now I am thinking that I'm doing something wrong is let's go into that extension. Where is that? Okay. Maybe this is, no, this is not. Okay, maybe this is it. Okay. Let me zoom this out. I try to spend more time sometime, which I should not be doing. I should first try the bare minimum. So the idea here that I had initially was to have a table which will store my account name, my container name, and then my access key, because I don't want to kind of hard code my access key throughout the application. And then kind of encrypt it here so that people cannot see it while I'm using it. Then based on that, I was trying to have a feel just to see is it working or not, to have a file name in my customer table to see, because the idea was that if I upload it and it gets uploaded, how I'll be able to download it. As in the, if I look at from the bigger picture, the idea is to have a separate table where there is a record ID and then there is a file name to kind of link how many documents are attached to this record and then kind of show them in a fact box, and if user clicks on it then call the download method and it downloads it from there into the streams, and then you can use it the way you want it. And then I just added this here, which is okay, but then I came here where I was trying first this, which is I said that I want to test my blob storage, and what I'll do is I'll ask for a file. Once the file comes into in a stream based on the user selection, I'll generate the file name, which will be just a combination of the file name and the file extension. And then based on that README document, I was able to kind of build the authorization with the key that's stored there and then initialize my container. And then try to kind of put my blob from stream into my Azure. And then if everything happens, then it just appends that name here, just for my fun. So this is what I was trying to do. So now what happens when I try this, and I guess I can't debug it because it's non-debuggable, the Microsoft code. So, okay, login. Let's see. So it does ask me for authorization. That is cool. That means it's reaching to that point where it is trying to connect to my Azure blob. So let's say test, and then I choose a file. Let's say this. So it does ask me this. So it surely have taken my credential and now it's trying to make a call to an external entity somewhere in the system and showing me that do you want to authorize this kind of interaction? And I say, okay, just allow it once and we'll see how it goes. And that's where I guess the problem starts, that it takes a while and then it says unable to upload. Could not upload this file into that. An SD test is the container that I have. It cannot upload the file there. When I look at the log, which I was showing you earlier, it shows that there was a request, but it kind of get rejected if you kind of dig deep into these. So somewhere while I was trying to create this Azure blob, I messed up somewhere, either in permission somewhere or limiting it somehow. And luckily or unluckily, I can't find a video from Microsoft or someone which gives me the bare minimum settings that I need to have my Azure container talking with my Business Central. Any thoughts? Where should I kind of start my search from?
Well, there are several places. One of the example can be, I'm just sharing the link,
Okay.
which you can look at. I was unable, no, I didn't have time to work on this. I was occupied in SharePoint.
Yeah,
So I've
that's cool.
shared the link.
Okay, let me click on that. I did read this, I guess. Yes, I did read this. And the crazy thing is that this article also does not talk about the how you create the blob. I guess my problem is how you create this. I'm not an expert on Azure for sure.
So there's a full code up behind it, now. We can have that code. It's
Yeah,
a
this is again trying to upload a file or download a file from there.
yes.
It is,
So what it
yeah,
is doing is instead of saving it on the drive from the attachment functionality, it
yeah,
is shifting it to Azure Blob
which
directly.
makes sense. Yeah, which makes sense. And this looks cool, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. That I have this problem of creating an Azure storage blob because that's where I'm missing something. I have everything in place.
So this person
As
has put in the complete GitHub library at the bottom.
yeah, but that's yeah, but that doesn't. Oh, he have a PowerShell, I guess, for it, or a command kind of like that. If I know, this is just all AL code.
So all AL, nothing else. I was
Yeah,
thinking that maybe tomorrow or sometime later, I will work on this and see what exactly he has done.
yeah. I guess the only problem that I'm stuck with, and I'm very near to this, what he was trying to do, and I'll be able to do it for sure, is on the Azure side. So maybe I need to look or start searching toward how you create a basic blob container which then can talk to your API. Because that's the only
Yes.
thing that I need. It's reaching here, so it creates it initializes a request, but as soon as it comes to the last command, it kind of fails to
Okay.
kind of talk to my Azure blob.
Maybe.
Now, yeah, so because from a bigger picture, what I was thinking that the idea would be that if I'm not wrong, the Azure blob storage will only store it in terms of the file name. So I somehow need to make sure that when I'm sending the file name, I kind of relate it to a UID, which is for that record. May not be exactly that, but a combination of field so that I can maintain those file names inside Business Central in a table and then use that table to kind of display a fact box that these many records you have on your Azure blob or tomorrow talking about uh, SharePoint or any other services for that matter. Because these are kind of independent. These are just for the file management, so they don't hold a reference to a record at that point. But for Business Central, I'll have to build something which will hold the reference rather than just having a plain file system over there.
Yeah, sure. Because we should basically have that record link saved along with the file.
Yeah,
Some
so that it's easier for me to kind of just do a get or a put, right? Directly
yes.
to that point. Because that's what I was trying here, as in I was not able to succeed. But this put command, which actually adds that stream into my blob, it does return a ABS operation response. And I was thinking that maybe there is something on the response, maybe the URL that I can read from, and store it in here. But that was not there. So maybe I need to spend a little more time into it because
Yeah.
it just says get error is successful and run. These are the only three methods into it, which are public more or less. So yeah, maybe a little bit time into it, and I guess first I need to understand how this whole the blob storage building part works, because if I'm able to just read all the containers, that's what I need. That my code is talking to it. Once I'm able to do it, then I guess rest is just AL code more or less.
In fact, you will have to read the content of the container,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But there, when you look at the library from Microsoft, it says that there are commands where you can even read or list down all the containers which are there
In a storage account.
in a storage account. So that makes our life more easier. That okay, maybe a customer wants to have a separate container
For
per
each
table.
department.
Yeah, maybe department. So I need to have a
Yeah,
link to those also.
that's cool. Well, if we can manage attachments, and that means they can be separately backed up, their permission sets can be done. It will
Yeah.
be good.
Hey Balaji, you had something before we switch to Sandeep sir for SharePoint? What he was able to figure out?
Yeah, hi Saurabh.
Hi.
So yeah, regarding this in this context, I was watching a video on the other day. Like it was actually they were trying to use Python code. So actually from the .NET, they were using .NET, and then backend was the Python. Like server level, they're using Python code. So what I was watching was initially they initialized the environment. They like Azure environment they initialized, and then using the code only, the access only if the access key is required, or if they have the access key, you can create a folder there in that container as your container service. You can create a folder automatically, and then you can like push your files automatically. So maybe I can share you that link what I was seeing that day, but I don't know how far it is possible in AL. But in Python, they initialized that environment variable as Azure, and then they were able to create a folder with the access key. Only access key is required. Yeah, as you said.
Right, and that's what I guess this Microsoft library is also doing. It's creating a shared access key based on the key that I have received, kind of encrypting that key into base64, and then it does call a initialize to that account and to that container with that access key, right? And then I'm trying to put blob, which is kind of copying the file from my, from my local system back to Azure blob. So all
But
that is
were you able to
part.
create that folder automatically? Like instead of you creating a folder manually in that ACS, Azure Container Registry, you can create it programmatically also. Like, is it? I mean, is it possible from AL?
Yeah, that's what I was showing earlier. Right? Let me find that again here. If I can go to README here. The first command that Microsoft shares here, that create your first blob, it actually initialize your storage account, and then you can give your container name here by using this create container command, which will eventually create a container on your blob storage, right? And then inside that you can keep putting files if you have to.
Oh, okay.
So this is the first set that Microsoft have shared, and I'm pretty sure it's working. Where I'm missing is on the Azure side. I might have restricted it somewhere by default. Maybe they restrict some things which I'm not able to figure out. But once that part is figured out, then I'm pretty sure we'll be able to play with it completely.
Yeah,
Because
maybe you could give it a try whether you can manually upload the file from
yeah,
the
I
Azure,
can.
whether it is having
I
any
can.
problems in the storage.
I can. I did try that. That's the first thought that always struck to me when my code doesn't work. That can I do it manually or not?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. So Sandeep sir, any
Yeah.
other thoughts on this before we switch it to Sandeep sir? Okay, so anybody who wants to play with this part of it before we switch to SharePoint, what Sandeep sir have learned, and then maybe we explore that also. You can go into the system app either from your Docker environment or from your local installation product DVD, and inside that there is a folder called as your Blob Service APIs, which gives you access to all these methods that we were talking about. So I was surprised that they didn't create a setup table. They should have it, which makes sense. But maybe that's part of your utility that you're building, which kind of handles the connection part, more or less the details of your Azure account. That's not part of it, but that's okay. I guess that'll be okay to manage.
I think they will be providing something, must be there, in terms of, because there are a lot of hidden tables, what I can see now.
Yeah, there are. But then, that also depends on the use case, how Microsoft is using and maybe how we'll be using it. So let's see.
Fine.
Okay, so do you want to share your screen, sir? And
Yeah,
let's see what,
we'll do
because
it.
I also spent some time onto it, so maybe I'll see where I was kind of failing completely.
I don't know why it gets stuck.
Yeah, for the first time, it does get stuck.
Yeah, now it
Yeah,
is.
now we can see.
Yeah. So just let me know if the font is okay or not,
Yeah, that's good. We can see that.
because I use a big screen too. So first thing was creating a table to manage my application client ID and the client secrets, the redirect URL. Microsoft also provides you something similar. So what I did was I went to portal.azure. Went to my directory and created some apps. So
Right.
one of the app was this, which was I was unable to make it work. Then I referred some Postman samples to make it work. The API permissions has to be given.
Yeah.
So mail.read, user.read, user.read all. Then secret has to be generated.
Right.
So and then the redirect URLs. One of
URL.
the URL that is basically required is this one, the
Yeah,
most
that's the
important one.
bare minimum one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this I created, and then it kind of worked. Sorry, oh, my mistake.
That's okay. And just while Sandeep sir is figuring it out, guys, if you don't know about it, the reason why Sandeep started doing it, and I also did it, is uh, when you use OAuth authentication, there is a token that's generated to do a request. So, like if you're doing a GET, that you need to generate a token, and that token is valid for a defined period of time. And you will notice when while you're working, sometime there's a pop-up which says authorize this app. That kind of taking consent from you to generate that authentication and allowing that app for whatever time frame is. What Sandeep sir is showing right now is a way of authorizing an external entity and allowing it to talk to your business center by doing it on by creating this app. And as Sandeep sir was saying, defining it roles, giving it permissions, deciding a uh, redirect URL and all those things. In that way, because everything is in your Office 365 space, it understand that this application per se, and if I'm not wrong, we are talking about Graph API in this point. The Graph API is authorized to do a call to and from my business center. Is that correct, Sandeep sir?
Yes,
Maybe.
absolutely. And also this is also required where you have to do this Office 365 authentication with on Business Central on premise.
Yeah.
So there also we create this app so that when we log in, Business Central can go to this app and which will in fact authorize the user from Office 365 Azure AD. So this is also created in that process. Though there are PowerShell commands which can be used, but one way Microsoft recommend is make it manually. And the only difference there, I believe, is one is it requires different permissions, API permissions, and the uh, written path is different.
Yeah, so
Redirect
that
URL.
I guess that depends, Sandeep sir, when you're creating the app, that depends on what you're targeting. So like you were targeting on Graph. So
Yeah.
while you are trying to add the app, you would have chosen a web app or the
Yes.
this. When you're doing it for service to service authentication between two business central environment, then you specifically choose business central. So the rest of the steps remain same other than the redirect URL and the application that you're choosing to kind of automatically allow to talk into.
Yes. And what it does is the problem that I'm currently facing is sending the client ID. Uh, my client ID. So this client ID pertains to the app. I can
Mhm.
request token. It does go to Microsoft Azure to authenticate, and it does give me this thing. The two
Token. Yeah.
problems now, this is a token.
Yeah.
The problem that I'm facing is firstly is storing this into blob field. What is happening is if I store this thing into blob using a UTF-8 format,
Mhm.
the content gets changed.
Okay.
So when I do retrieval of that text from the blob and the original blob that I'm saving, they're different.
But let me ask you one question because I was trying to use the Microsoft way. What's the benefit of doing it this route? Because if you add it on the Microsoft page, right, and then assign the correct permissions to it, then you don't have to, I guess, worry about this. Then it take care of it automatically.
Yeah, since I was doing testing and it
Also,
was asking
yeah,
me each and every time, so I thought of storing it. So what I did was in this table, I created a field and stored it. And since this authentication can last for 6 months, so for
yeah.
the next 6 months, I will not have to re-authenticate it or refresh the token.
But if you add it on that AAD, and maybe I was testing something incorrectly, but if you store it there, does it even ask you then?
No, it does ask me. Yes, because I
When
was
you
unable to use it. So what happens is there are two calls. One is to generate the token, and the
right,
second call is for authenticating that request to the file. So while saving the file, I will have to
okay,
send the success token along with it.
okay, okay, you're talking about the code right now. Okay,
So yeah, there are two processes. One is generate the token. Second
right,
is when you are going to actually store the file or retrieve the list of files from the SharePoint, you
yeah,
will have to pass this token along with it.
right. That makes sense, but it's not automatically you're saying reading it. Yeah, I haven't
No.
reached to this part. I
So
was
there are
playing with the
two
SharePoint
calls.
more or less.
So there are always two calls.
Right. One to fetch the token and then one to
Uh,
fetch the actual
so
thing that you want.
and while defining the app, you can at least define what is the length of this um credential that is generated. So it's 6 months I've selected. So for the
Right.
next 6 months, I don't have to generate the next token.
But token does expire after a point, right?
After 6 months, yes, in this case. So while creating, say if I create a new app in this Azure Active Directory, I go here and I create a new app. It will ask me the test, say, for example, uh, any Active Directory, say web, and let me select this one. And then when I say will register, it would ultimately ask me what is the length you're going to store.
Yeah, when you go into the certificate and
It's
secrets,
certain
yeah.
in this secrets, yes.
Secrets, yeah.
Recommended 6 months. So you can have it more as well.
No, but this is the client's secret to kind of a password which will not change for 6 months, right? But when we talk, and maybe I'm completely wrong, I'm very new into this. But when we talk about the token, that is granted at the time of query, right? When you are doing it.
It does have expiry time as well. It
Okay,
does sense expiry time. I don't know if authorization time was just 1011 and then expires in this many seconds,
okay,
something 4716. So 10 minutes at least. If there are multiple calls, you don't have to worry.
okay.
So that was the whole purpose.
Did,
And then I created one more page to
mm-hmm.
get the list of my drives. And this
Cool.
is where it sends those authorization token to get it. Now what happens is this is the first call I'm
Right.
sending,
Yeah.
and this is the after I've saved it. So the
Right.
content gets changed, and it is not fetching. It's given error.
Right.
I've seen some tutorials where they have shown it working, but I have not been able to make it work.
Okay, I kind of got stuck on the SharePoint part because I haven't done much SharePoint. As in, I have used it, but I haven't set it up, more or
Let me
less.
show you one more thing. If you see this, this is also available.
Okay,
And
that's look good.
and I'm unable to make it work as well. And the thing which I am working, this will do is when I'm doing say export to Excel,
Mm-hmm.
and if I say open in Excel, it
Right.
will go here on the SharePoint,
That's cool. This is
and it will
actually
save that
needed.
file it here. But
And
I'm facing some problems here
you have tweaked the code, or it is by default going there?
by default. No coding.
Oh,
This is
that's
without
cool.
coding. I was
Okay,
referring
so
to an article by, I believe, a Japanese MVP.
yeah,
So he has
using
given
yeah.
a very cool method to do it. But unfortunately, I've followed what he has done because it does not involve code.
Hmm.
But still, I've not been able to make it work. Maybe
Yeah,
from
so
some
if
SharePoint.
you find it handy somewhere later, just send me an email or maybe post it somewhere. I would
Yeah, but
also like to go through it. This is interesting.
fine. So this is where I've written all the code to upload the files um,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. Mm, so there was to fetch the authentication, and somehow it was giving me some problems. I also had done refresh of the token,
Right.
but somehow this is giving me a lot of problems. And then once this is done, then it will allow me to save files, send files, everything.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. So that's interesting.
So working on it, but one thing is that I didn't got too much of time.
That's okay. Yeah. We
And the second is how to do this text when we are storing in the stream. If you can see this code.
yeah.
So when I'm doing it, whether I'm using 16 or 18, 16 is basically um, Unicode,
Right.
but still the value gets changed.
I'll have to see it as I don't know. Maybe you are more experienced on this one for me because I have not played with OAuth much. But yeah, now right now I'm super interested in all these four things, and I'm surely working on it. So yeah, I'll surely have some finding next time when we meet around this. So
And I'm sure I will be able to make it work. Maybe
yeah,
since we have got 15 days,
yeah,
so should get some time
nice.
to do it. And once I've done it, I will sync it on the
Makes sense.
GitHub.
Yeah, the pull request is already there. So yeah. Anyone have any questions to Sandeep sir?
No.
Okay, Sandeep sir, I'll just start
Fine.
sharing
Yeah.
here, and then I want to talk about yeah. So yeah, as in those who are here, does all this help? As in we all started it as we all talked about it, that we want to create some samples that we can use. So is it something that we still want to continue, guys?
I think, sir, we should have some break in between. You should do regular sessions as well, because people
Yeah.
do have some lot of questions sometimes.
Okay, so yeah, maybe after this we'll take a break because the BC20 is kind of also on the edge now. And yeah, or maybe we don't, what we do is we decide what we want to do and then we keep on doing it. And once we think it's the right time, we should meet and talk about it. Maybe then we meet again and set up a meeting based on where we are on that.
Yes, that will be good. And I believe by the next meeting, BC20 will be more or less be ready
Taped
for
up.
launch. Yeah,
Yeah.
then we will have a lot of things to discuss on that.
Okay,
maybe
but
1 or 2 sessions for that. We should
yeah, for sure.
once
Yeah.
April comes.
Yeah. So yeah, as in whoever is interested on these, please spend some time. If you are a developer, then all of these will impact you someday in future for sure. It started impacting us in the upgrade team, and I'm pretty sure as customers who are on SaaS will start identifying how much data is being collected in the system just from the file storages, it will be a problem for users or customers there. So if you can be a little bit creative on at least on the document side, because sometimes documents can be super crazy. I have seen customers who have hundreds of document attachment on a document. So spend some time on it. It's fun, literally it's fun to kind of go into it and then start playing with it. I How should I tell you what I was doing? I had this, I actually created a SharePoint, and I learned something on SharePoint, that how you create document libraries. Then I was playing with this, what we call this, Graph API, which is super cool. You should be using it. If you are not, I recently found about it. I heard about it earlier, but I didn't use it. But there are already built-in sample queries for different things that you can use. Like if you use it from your profile in whatever your company is, you'll see your details here, whatever photos you have stored on your profiles, your email ID, and things like that. All items in a drive and things. And if you can run through it, then I bet you can run through it from Business Central. That's where, because all this right now is in the Microsoft ecosystem. Like my SharePoint is on Microsoft ecosystem, Graph Explorer is on my Microsoft ecosystem. Then I can actually see from here without any OAuth or tokens, as Sandeep sir were talking about, directly from here, that I can see that, oh, my root site is this, and the libraries inside my root drive are these.
Should I show you something?
Yes, sir. Why not? And Manish, you have something? Well, Sandeep sir is sharing.
Yes, sorry, I don't know about the previous sessions. I missed that. Did we discussed about this AWS S3?
No, that's part of it. That just came as a suggestion, so we'll start talking about it.
Okay.
And
So,
here come the, yeah. Go ahead.
so is there a way where we can directly integrate it with Business Central to AWS? Because I have seen a HubSpot thing where it connects AWS and Business Central. Apart from this, because
Yeah.
currently in our organization, we are using the .NET team to develop an API to communicate the files, upload and download from S3 to Business Central.
I don't know, man, yet. Somebody said it. I just added it into the set of requirements, but I'm pretty sure we will see that as an, because
Yes,
when you do the basic SharePoint, OneDrive, and Azure blob, these are Microsoft space, but you kind of get a gist of the direction that you should target any kind of integration.
okay,
You understand the context of it, you understand the terminology about it, that okay, I need to do a get, then I need to do the get the token out of it, then I have to commit to it, and all
right,
these technologies work in a similar fashion, maybe different jargons based on technology, but they are more or less doing the same thing.
right, right.
So yeah, maybe once I played with this, and if you are playing with it, cool. Whoever is played with it, then it'll be the next step to kind of go into Azure Web Services into it.
Okay,
And I believe once we are done with OneDrive and SharePoint, I will definitely give it a try to Azure with this
Yeah,
AWS thing.
yeah.
AWS. Yeah, yeah, that's
And it should work. Like what?
yes. I try to reduce the .NET teamwork, so I just look into the integration that. But I came across a HubSpot, which is an intermediate between the Business Central and AWS S3 bucket. So still, I'm not able to find how can I directly integrate it.
First, then you are working on AWS, my friend. We are, we are working on other three. You are working on AWS when you are trying to build this.
Uh,
Sure.
So like Saurabh, what you were showing, what
Yeah,
I did was having this graph with the
Postman.
Postman, standard Microsoft stuff, and I was amazed the way it shows things. So get my message will actually get my email messages
Yes,
once I've
the
refreshed the
token is, yeah,
token.
refresh. Right.
So then it will actually get my this thing sync
It's
token.
super cool. As in, I
Uh,
was reading the capabilities of it. It's super cool that how, as in all the APIs you can, business central APIs you can also use it, and they have also exposed some reports as APIs. So you can actually read data from reports using API.
yeah.
You don't have to. Yeah,
So
sure.
this
There's
will
so much.
actually this got my mails, and I was surprised to see it.
Yeah, this is super
So
cool.
not
As
only
in,
mails, you have got notebooks, you have got SharePoint things, libraries,
everything,
subsites,
right?
subtypes, and then you have got Teams as well, your
Yeah.
channels,
And actually,
That's
I was reading about it that if you actually store these files in SharePoint, then they can you kind of can access it from your teams. You don't have to separately search for it or go into Business Central for it. If they are on SharePoint, then they are available in Teams.
and have you worked on Dataverse?
Yes, I was playing with it one day.
I
I'm building a.
accidentally matched it. I activated this on here.
Yeah,
So from the assisted setup,
right.
I was
Um,
able to create the
yeah,
setup.
right. Because I'm actually building a Power App for my daughter, as in not for her, but for my learning. And there was some part of it which I was doing it in Business Central, and some part that as in the data set, more or less is stored in Business Central, and then the
Mm.
Power App using Dataverse reads the data from Business Central and then exposes it the way I want to kind of show it on the screen. And that's my kind of my attempt on Power Apps. Let's see how that goes.
I've been working on it. I've been able to activate this as well as
Just
to the
try
few accounts.
just try one thing. Once you have activated the Dataverse, as soon as you create a API page, those API pages are automatically available on Dataverse with all the data. You don't have to manually go and create a table in there.
Don't tell me that. So if
Yeah,
I make a custom API,
it will be exposed there. All the fields will be there. You can read the data from there, and that's what I did for my for that app which I'm working on.
wow,
So if you just connect these and you expose an API page, the data is available on Dataverse, and then you either use it on Power Apps or any of the things that's available connected there.
this will be super interesting.
Yeah.
I've already done it. Matlab, the connection is set.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now,
Just create a custom API, publish it, and you will see it there. Just refresh your Dataverse, and it'll be visible there.
great. We'll have a look at it.
Right.
Now, one question for you.
Yes, sir.
Totally different. I mean, if somebody has other questions, they can ask because my question will be totally different from the regular stuff that we are talking. Does anybody have any questions before I ask?
no.
Fine, thank you. The thing is, I'm doing integration with Oracle,
Mm-hmm.
and while doing the integration, we have to install something called Oracle Data Managers in the Visual Studio Code, or if you are using Visual Studio 2019, even at there. So now if I do it, install that code, will it work in AL? Because I've been unable to find any document where it says AL will accept other extensions other than which have been built specifically for AL. Do you know any such extension which works?
Okay, which works in AL.
Let's say, for example, if what it does is it will allow you to create readers, and those readers will execute SQL queries basically.
No, I don't think so. But and my hands are pretty tied up with as in I don't know much about JavaScript, But I think what you're trying to achieve, because Business Central does accept JavaScript as control add-ins and things like that, right? So if you can actually invoke it from JavaScript, and then that JavaScript can be part of your page, that way, I guess that's the only possibility. You can't directly do a SQL reader call from there. As per my understanding, is it the only way, I guess, to interact without being crazy on .NETs and all, which again a limitation in the SaaS world, is the JavaScript.
Okay.
Like all the cool stuff that you'll see, like people have created these cool add-in pages where you can drop files, and they get uploaded in SharePoint and they get placed in Teams just by dragging it there. At all Java control add-ins.
The problem I think with Java control add-ins will be that it will be called from a page,
Yes, only from
and
page.
the integration will work in batch mode. So it will be invoked through a scheduler, job
Coding.
scheduler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that limits.
Yeah, that we surely limited.
Fine. Because I will have to do ultimately is, if I don't find a solution, use some .NET component, and it's an on-premise implementation.
Yeah, then for next year they'll have to kind of pay for it more or less. But yeah.
No. I will not do that. I will create APIs, and my .NET application will,
On Azure.
on Azure, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's
So,
possible.
so what it will do is it will have a small .NET application on the server installed, and it will call my Business Central APIs to push the data. So the
Makes
customer
sense.
doesn't have to pay anything.
That makes sense. That sounds cool. Okay. Anyone? Anything?
Yes, one more question. Are
Yes,
you going
sir.
to sync your code?
I haven't completed it. As soon as it is done, I'll surely sync it. As in, it's half baked. If you want, I can just send it to you on mail.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
I
I'll
will.
send that extension, whatever that is, whatever the part is ready. I'll send it to you, and then you can play with it, I guess.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, we meet after 1 week now, as in on 26th we will meet, and I'll check in with, as in I'll look at the Git just before the session. If there are multiple commits, we may talk about, as in pull request, we may continue this conversation. Otherwise, as Sandeep said, we'll continue with Q&As that we used to do. And then once in a while, we'll continue with these sessions as we are talking about, doing our developments behind the scene. Okay. So yeah, enjoy your weekend. Have a safe and a happy Holi, and we'll see you then after, on 26th.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Thanks, man.
Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you. Happy
you.
Holi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.